We don't know specifically what led to the passing, what condition. We're joined at this hour by Providence College professor Jim Keating with more information about Pope Francis's condition and anticipated next steps. Professor Keating, good morning.
Good morning.
Let's start first by looking back at the Pope's life. Mario and I were talking about the fact that he was sort of progressive for this time. Can you comment on that?
Yes. Well, the last two popes, John Paul II and Benedict XVI, were seen, I think fairly as reasserting the traditional teachings of the Catholic Church, but also the Church's stance against certain aspects of modern culture. And Francis wanted to change the perception of the Church and also the type of topics that the Church emphasized.
And in terms of what happens now with the succession, there'll be a period of mourning, and then when do we see the cardinals come together to begin that process of selecting a new pope?
Well, once they start the official period of mourning, they're going to start arriving, and then they'll have some days of discussion about the church, and then they'll move into conclave.
Can you tell us a little bit more about Pope Francis's medical issues? Of course, we've been reporting widely on the fact that he was suffering from double pneumonia. He was in and out of the hospital for quite lengthy periods of time. But even before the double pneumonia, he had some significant health challenges.
When he was a young man in his 20s, he had a portion of his lung removed because of a severe infection. So he had basically since that time been vulnerable to respiratory diseases and struggles and such. He also had a number of issues with his knee. That's the reason he was in a wheelchair in the beginning, and starting in 2022, I believe. He also had sciatica. He had a lot of typical, health problems associated with old age, but also, and what most likely was the end for him was his problems with his lungs.
Talk about his tenure as Pope and what his legacy you think will be, reaching out to the Catholic faith around the world and the world at large.
Yeah, John Paul, as I said, John Paul and Benedict really wanted to focus on reviving a very active, element of the Church that would know the faith and would stand against certain aspects of contemporary culture. Francis's emphasis was different. He wanted to reach out to those who were struggling with their faith, and also, in particular, struggling with the Church's relationship to poverty, but also to social issues such as women or LGBTQ or maybe worries about globalization or climate change. So that was not completely. You heard the other popes talk about those things, obviously, but Francis really made that a hallmark of his patron.
Is there ever any indication of who might succeed him, like within the walls of the Vatican, within the inner circle? Is there anything like that, or does it start fresh with a clean slate, really?
No, I mean, Pope Francis's health has been failing for a while, and a couple of months ago, of course, he came very close to death, and so you had a lot of discussion at that time. So sure, there are a list of men who are potential up.
I think we just lost you right there. I'm going to ask one more question in case you can hear us. What do you think are the priorities now for the Church moving forward? Pope Francis started pushing the boundaries a little bit. Do you think the Church will start moving more in that direction or pulling back with the new Pope? Is there any way to know?
There's no way to know. Tradition tells us that when a Pope dies, especially if the Pope has changed the Church in significant ways and caused a little bit of, confusion, anxiety, typical kinds of things. The Church normally picks someone who doesn't reject the previous Pope's ideas, but also is a little more of a stabilizing figure.
Mm-hmm.
All right, Professor Jim Keating, Providence College, we appreciate your time this morning and your insight and your perspective, as always, on matters of the Pope and the Catholic Church.